All right, we're back. It's sounding off on soccer on Pittsburgh Sports Live. This is John Krasinski of Pittsburgh Soccer Now with my fellow Pittsburgh Soccer Now contributor, Mark Goodman, soccer rabbi. Mark, how you doing tonight? It's Sunday night. It's a day after a wild Pittsburgh River Hounds 4-3 win at Tulsa, and you were on the beat. You were keeping a close tabs on that one yesterday. What was your we most people probably saw your write-up, but based on our incredible numbers at Pittsburgh Soccer Now, but but what were your takeaways, from that match, from 4-3 up 4-1, and the Hounds had to hang on for a 4-3 win?
Yeah, I think Josh Brokaw at Steel Army said it really the best way, which was, boy, it was kind of, I think he tweeted something to the effect of like, boy, isn't it great that we're such an offensively minded team now? We're not doing lily ball, but oh my God, can't we do a little bit of lily ball for a little bit? It's like when they got up, they pounded them for the first couple of goals. I mean, they went up 2-0 before you blink an eye. And then they went up, then they were up 2-1, and then they went straight to 4-1. And at that point, it was like, oh, great, we've got, 20, 30 minutes of game left, and we just got to kill it off and get out of here with all 3 points. And then they made it real exciting. They conceded a couple of goals towards the end, and they started to look really shaky. And we started to think like, my God, who is this team? They score a lot of goals, and they concede a lot of goals, and that is very not Bob Lilly. I mean, I think the funniest thing will be, you and I both have watched enough away games, and even, now the home games are covered by some ethereal crew in Tampa or in, Los Angeles, or I have no idea where they get these guys. And they always talk about Lily Ball, and Lily Ball historically has been, winning 1-0, being very defensive, very, very difficult to work through the opposing third, and then parking the bus when you have the lead. And that's not Lily Ball anymore, right? Like Bob Lilly plays a very different style of soccer. And what you saw in Tulsa is the new Lily Ball, whatever the heck that means. It was pretty wild. What did you see from that game? Because, or what of the highlights or of the kind of things that you've read has kind of jumped out at you?
Well, to follow your point, I mean, that's the nature of the game. That. I mean, when you open things up, things go that way. And then the way from what I could see, the way they were getting back, they were just conceding the width. And it seemed like it. And it seemed like, especially once they had the lead, and that gave Tulsa a lot more opportunity to just keep, kind of, real obviously own possession and press forward with, it's like anything else, like an NBA team that has a 25-point lead. You take the foot off the gas. In the NFL, we see it all the time. Teams come back. When another team is playing with such a sense of urgency and nothing to lose, you're down 2 goals or you're down 3 goals, all of a sudden, hey, what do we got to lose? I mean, obviously, I've written a book centered around a miracle comeback. And a lot of the mindset is, yeah, there's a certain point. But when you play with an attacking group that the Hounds have this year, they're going to open things up. They're going to, Alex Dixon is playing essentially an outside back position yesterday. But you and I both know, and if you look at the post-match, where everybody was in terms of charting players where they were. Alex Dixon is kind of right in that middle left side of the field almost the whole match. He was not playing back at all. So they were open. Arturo Ordonez was the only one anywhere near close to the arc or the 18. If you look at that chart in terms of where the players were on average throughout the match. So that tells you that they were playing. They were happy to open things up, and it's interesting. It reminded me of Pitt. It reminded me of Jay Vidovich's Pitt squad, where they would get up 2-0, 3-0, but they would especially the year they made it all the way to the Final Four. But every game, it seemed like they gave up a goal. It was like as good as they were, and at different points they were #1 in the country, they were still giving up goals, and it was the nature of the way they played. They were open, and they kind of got exposed a little bit, especially late in matches, which really is what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of possession, it was at the end of the day, it was 59-41 Tulsa. They had 570 passes. I think the Hounds had 378. Shots were even, 11 apiece, and 6-4. The Hounds had more shots on frame. So, they were definitely the more quality side. They had more quality throughout the match, and that really was enough to kind of put them over the top. And obviously, just some class finishes there. Dikwa scored twice, and I think he's really coming into his own, isn't he, Mark?
Yeah, Dikwa had a great game. The Dixon goal was lovely just because of the way he shimmied and then pushed it outside to do it. The prettiest goal of the night for me, I think I wrote up, was the Dane Kelly goal, and that was because Danny Rivera just broke all the lines with one of these ridiculous passes that, in soccer, one of the fun things is that it's not like football. In football, you have to, in American throw ball football, the quarterback and the wide receiver have to know where the ball is going to be, and they have to put it exactly there. You can't try stuff, right? And the great thing about soccer is you're going to get between 30 and 60 possessions offensively in a soccer game, and everybody's moving all the time, and that means you can try stuff. And so for Danny Rivera to kind of dribble into the middle of the field, hit a through ball that bypasses both of his defenders and then both of the backline center backs, which Dane Kelly can split and run onto, is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. That was the most important goal of the night because ultimately that would kind of be the one that broke the camel's back. They would come back after that, but it really was, I think that was the third goal, but it was really like a lovely one. On the other end, you mentioned Arturo Ordonez, and I don't think he had a great game. He had a couple of times, I think both of the last two goals, where he found himself marking space instead of marking a man, where the ball got put into a place where Arturo didn't quite make the decision between getting tight to the player versus stepping into the passing lane. And that's pretty much, what center backs are supposed to do. The other thing is, up 4-1, you would think that the Riverhounds would have found a way to, eat up space in the final third and really occupy and make it hard to work through them. And they really didn't. I mean, they were actually, Tulsa went through them like a hot knife through butter in the final 20 minutes. And that is probably, the other running joke for those of us who know Bob Lilly is, man, how long did he keep them on the field after that game? Or how much yelling in the dressing room was there going to be at the end of that game? Because there were a lot of mistakes at the end. And I think one of the other ones that broke my heart, because he's a player I really like, both like as a person and as a player, is Mikael Williams. Mikael subbed on in, I think, somewhere after the 70th minute. Mm-hmm. And within a blink of an eye, on his side, he conceded a goal. And I'm glad that they got out of there. They killed off the final 10 minutes, from the 85th minute when the final goal went in till 90+4 when the game ended. So they held tight for those last 9 minutes, and that's good. But Bob made a couple of subs, and they suddenly felt a little bit limp, and that's a little bit strange. The last thing I'll say is this: Tulsa was undefeated at home before this game. And I think it's easy to say, based on how much we gave them a thumping in the first half, the Riverhounds, almost coughs it up to a weaker opponent. But the reality is, like you said, I think really well, it was a very back and forth give and take game. I don't think anybody should disregard the quality that Tulsa has on their squad. They're an experienced USL side. Their team is, basically the entire age bracket of the team is 24 to 29 with 4 to 5 years in USL and other leagues. They're a good team. They're a solid team. They were a solid team last year in the Western Conference, and the Western Conference is very strong. So I think that's the last thing I'll say, is that this was a great game to kind of draw a barometer between the West and the East, because we really don't get a lot of that. We barely ever get to play, west of the Mississippi. And this was a good opportunity to kind of figure out, like, all right, granted they're in the Eastern Conference now, but to figure out, like, all right, where do the two conferences match up? Do the two conferences still, are they still basically even? So it was a good win overall. They'll learn a few lessons from it, but I think fans should be pretty excited about the fact that these Hounds score goals.
Absolutely. So Albert Dikwa, 4 goals for the season. Dane Kelly has 4 for the season. So the Hounds right now, 2 guys look like they can both reach double digits for the year.
Wow.
In our prediction show, we talked about that. There was some Cicerone, which is an interesting player, came off the bench yesterday.
Yeah.
An interesting player who's maybe his production and his numbers may be down, but his work rate says he does so many good things. I think he created a chance yesterday as well. It's going to be interesting. Again, that mix of, Bob felt I need to put Dane Kelly and Albert Dikwa in the lineup at the same time, and that can work. He had Dikwa sitting underneath Kelly and Kelly at the high target spot, which was interesting. But again, I think Bob sees things in the opponents and kind of tries to kind of look at that and before he goes with the game plan. You mentioned Danny Rivera. I wanted to just kind of add to that element of where he has, it's interesting, in a Bob Lilly system, he's very fluid. He can move wherever he wants to go. His average position was still kind of in line with Danny Griffin in that kind of midfield spot. But yet at times he's going to pick his spots and he's going to move forward and he's going to interchange with Conardo Forbes. And, you and I both know Conardo Forbes, Bob has given him the green light to be more of an attacking midfielder. Last half of last season and now into this season. But at times, Conardo will also sit back and just, ping passes and send crosses and just kind of play a deeper position. So it's just fascinating to see those 3. And I remember watching the Pitt preseason match and exact seeing that. I saw Rivera, Griffin, and Forbes. And I think yesterday seemed like the 11 that were out there yesterday. I think Bob went with what looks to me like the strongest 11.
Yeah, and I want to say to that we got to ask Bob exactly how he figures this out, because it really feels like Kenny has the freedom to do whatever he wants, and Bob must be telling Danny Rivera and Danny Griffin, fill in wherever Kenny's not, and Griffin had a kind of a quiet game yesterday, but that's also because Kenny had a lot of big moments. He had, I think, at least 1 or 2 assists, but he was definitely everywhere. He was popping up on the right side. He was popping up in the box. He was doing a lot of things. So it's really interesting that I think you're right that both those center 3 midfielders are a really interesting piece of the puzzle. And that other thing that you said at the very beginning of, like, there are so many exciting striker forward types on this team, but he can't put them all. Too much good stuff, man. He can't put them all on the field at the same time.
Yeah, I think but he's, for the most part, he's maximizing the minutes for each of those players right now. I mean, again, Cicerone, as I said, production maybe not quite what it was last year, but does it need to be? I mean, you've got Kelly and you got Dixon, so and obviously Dikwa now is coming to his own, and I think last year Dikwa, before he got injured and was gone for a while, he struggled there. Remember that? I remember you going over his ability to finish. His goals. There was some sort of statistical analysis where it was his goals he's supposed to score, and he wasn't quite there. He was kind of well below what he should have been scoring. So I think a lot of times those things even out, but it's also a veteran player, another year under his belt, another year playing with Bob, playing with Dane Kelly, playing with those guys. I think he's becoming a bit more of a polished player.
100%. I'm very excited to see where the whole team goes. I mean, but it's a great point that what Dikwa wasn't doing last year could have been injury, and it could have been settling into the system. And it also might be the other way around, which is that Bob has figured out what his best position is and how to get the most usage of him. Because I think you watch tape of a guy or you hear what a scout says, or you hear what his agent says, and then you fit him in, and then you find out actually like, oh, the agent told me he was an inverted winger, but in fact, he's actually more of a fullback, or actually, and Dane Rivera, a great example of that, right? Rivera's been playing, left back and right back for the River Hounds, mostly right back, I think, for the past couple of years. And Bob moved him in the preseason. We both noticed it, into defensive midfield. And we were like, am I seeing that wrong? And we asked Matt Grubbo with the team, and he was like, no, that's a thing. We don't know what's going to happen, but that's what Bob's trying right now. And that's where it's at right now, which is it's an exciting thing. So we'll see how it evolves.
Yep. And last thing I wanted to add in terms of players, just kind of things that I noticed yesterday. Nathan Dos Santos, another start,
right?
The outside back. I believe he's on the left side, but Dixon was on the right side. So 4 crosses. He had 44 touches, which is interesting. The Hounds haven't played a lot through the wider channels as much in the beginning of this year. But I think he definitely had a lot of touches yesterday.
Yeah. Toby Sims has been the other left back or left wing back that the River Hounds have been going with. And I think you're right, but I think there's kind of a bias that we would have in the post Ryan James era, which is that Ryan James was really the point guard for the whole team when he played with the team. And ever since then, everything's looked a little bit different. So that's actually, it's actually kind of good to see the River Hounds starting from a different place. Before it started with Ryan James, and the year before they had Ryan James, it started with Tommy Vankiaziel. So, generally, so having diversity of ability of where to start off and is a valuable thing. I think when your team gets stuck in certain patterns, you start to look clunky. And I think we've all seen that as soccer fans where, the ball just keeps going down this side, or, goes from this guy to that guy to this guy over and over and over again. And you're like, how does the opposing team, clearly the opposing team is stopping it. Why don't they go to something else? And that's, I think, something that maybe we're seeing with this Hounds team, that they have lots of ways to hurt you.
Yeah, absolutely. And good segue. You mentioned Toby Sims, segue to the U.S. Open Cup. So the Hounds on Tuesday knocked off the Maryland Bobcats at 2-0. Toby had both goals. This is, I believe, it was his second start, but it was his first start where he played pretty high up as an attacking midfielder on that left side, as you talked about. Never had, he said, in any level of soccer had ever played that position. So again, with some of the things we're talking about just now about Bob's, players that are versatile, or he sees something in that player. And there's Toby Sims getting 2 goals in the Open Cup win, which have allowed the Hounds to advance to take on, we learned on Friday, it's going to be FC Cincinnati at Cincinnati. Of course, that's the big disappointment for Riverhound fans. They just want that. They want so badly to have that MLS team here in Pittsburgh against them at Highmark Stadium.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen at least this round. And if they can get out of this round, they can pull out the upset against FC Cincinnati, which, your tweet and a number of other people believe that, this is a team that can be beaten. They're beatable. So
they've been bad for years. They're 2-time wooden spoon winning team in the USL. They're actually in MLS. They're actually one of the only MLS away games I went to. Last year I went to see them. Last summer I went out to see the opening of their new stadium. I think it's called TQL Stadium. Amazing experience. Highly recommended for all you Riverhounds fans. It's only about a 3-hour drive. You get to pass the Hell is Real sign, which is like epic. That's I had to stick my phone out the window to take a picture of it, and risking the lives of all of the other people on the interstate. The pregame like beer garden pub scene around the stadium is fantastic. They've really kind of created a great culture down there. The stadium itself is kind of, has its charms, but it still needs a few little touches to kind of become like a first-rate MLS stadium. Nobody really cares about my away game experience, but the important thing is this team. And the challenges with Cincinnati is that they built it wrong at the beginning, and then they rebuilt it in the second year and they built it wrong again. And right now what they're going through is really tough, which is they've done kind of the cardinal sin in Major League Soccer, which is you get 3 designated players in Major League Soccer, players who their budget charge is irrelevant to your bottom line. They're basically off the salary cap players, meaning you could literally buy Ronaldo and Messi and they wouldn't count against the, kind of the MLS salary cap. They went out and got a guy named Brenner, who's a Brazilian striker. And not only has he been very disappointing, his finishing has been really lacking. And just recently, if you haven't seen it, Hounds fans, there's been a bunch of news on the wire the last week that he's been asked to get out of his contract or to be traded. And I don't know whether that's because he doesn't like Skyline Chili, or he doesn't like living in Cincinnati, or he's homesick, or or most realistically, that he doesn't feel like he's playing with a very good team. But you've got a disgruntled striker, you've got a team that's pretty weak. And then I think the last thing that's really difficult and gives us Hounds fans a lot of hope is, typically all teams around the world in their early cup matches, you see this in the English league, in the Spanish league, in the French league, and you see it here in US Open Cup, you want to rest your big guys, let your bench guys get some run, and let your academy kids get a glow up and get an opportunity to play at the top level. Well, FC Cincinnati doesn't really have an academy to speak of. I mean, they have an academy, right, but it's only a couple years old and it doesn't really have much of a reputation at all in MLS. So, their top team isn't very good. They need to rest them. And as far as I know, they don't have anything resembling depth. So there are some real problems for Cincinnati. I would venture so far as to say, forget this is a winnable game for the River Hounds. They should really go into this game and say, this is a 50-50 match for us. We are as good as these guys and we can beat this team.
Well, I mean, they're obviously top team in the USL Championship right now. There's no question about that. We know that they're 4-0-1, but they're also, their quality. They've been showing it. The thing that's going to be tough is that the Las Vegas trip on Saturday, turn around to Sunday. I mean, they're basically, it's like an MLS type of trip across the country, play Las Vegas, then have to turn around on Tuesday and go to Cincinnati. So I don't know what the itinerary is going to be. I don't know if they're going to just fly into Cincinnati or what they're going to do. And that might be something that they may want to consider. Or maybe they have already, I'm sure they've figured that out by now. But the thing is, that's the only kind of thing and the depth. I mean, you do want to, they absolutely want to do well in terms of how they perform in Las Vegas. But Bob is building, I mean, this is his theme this year is depth. He really wants to build that depth out. So, and use his depth, and he's done it. He did it in Detroit. He's played a team in the Open Cup that looked pretty strong. So I think this is a team that can go, he can put who he wants on the field and put almost 9 or 10 different guys on the field for the next game and feel like they won't miss too much of a beat. So I think that's where, as you're saying, in terms of interesting that Cincinnati at the MLS level struggling in terms of their depth. But again, that's always been the part where the Riverhounds have struggled in Open Cup matches, against the DC United loss or in the Columbus. And they were playing second line of players in those matches. And they were just in terms of quality, were just a little bit better in some key areas. So that's
sure.
The Hounds, I think, can mix it up. They could even play a few different guys in that match at Cincinnati and not necessarily have to be the starting 11 that played, on Saturday in Tulsa. So I'm sure Bob will have a game plan in mind, and I think they will acquit themselves very well. Whether they can win or not, like you said, 50-50. Well, I think it just remains to be seen. But I'm excited about the matchup. I think they have you talked about visiting the new stadium. The last 2 years they played against Cincinnati, we made the trip each year, Labor Day weekend. They seem to play the same weekend 2 years in a row at Nippert Stadium. and it was a lot of fun. It was
Mhm.
absolutely great. And so the Open Cup, though, midweek Open Cup games for MLS teams typically don't draw that well, but might be advantage for Pittsburgh.
And they don't draw well against the lower sides. MLS teams don't get up for these games, and that is why the USL teams are so dangerous, and even the NISA teams and the local qualifiers. Although there aren't too many local qualifiers left this year, but there's some really exciting games. I got to watch Cal United. They have a 15-year-old kid named Lee, who's just absolutely tearing it up. There are some really fun lower division sides still left in this one, and it should be good to see. The other fun matchup that I think a lot of US Open Cup nerds will be into this coming one is the battle for the Midwest, which is between the Minnesota United Loons and Ford Madison Flamingos. So that should be really, Minnesota and Wisconsin going at it is as good as it gets. So
I also see Detroit will be hosting Columbus. So I thought that's pretty fascinating. And, their fan base is going to be revved up for that one for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's, there's a decent chance for either for any one of these four teams to go through, really. I think DCFC, it'll be a lot to bite off for them because there's a lot of quality in that Columbus team and a lot of experience. And I think that's what Columbus will bring to the table that Cincinnati does not. Just a lot of experienced MLS hands. Even if you rest half of them, you've still got depth in that roster. So,
all right, Mark. Well, the Riverhounds have a busy schedule this coming week, or actually into next weekend, and then Tuesday turnaround. So it's not going to be easy. What are your thoughts? What do you think? How will they do in Vegas? And we're just kind of preliminary thought on what that match might present.
My experience with Bob is that he tends not to really rest a lot of guys before US Open Cup. And that's not how I would do it, but far be it for me to impugn the intellect and logic of our saint and leader, Bob Lilly. But, Lights was terrible last year. They had a pretty bad year under Steve Cherundolo, former USMNT fullback, who's now the head coach for LAFC. LAFC took a loss yesterday against LA Galaxy in El Tráfico, which was a great matchup again. But Lights are not a very strong team. If I were the Riverhounds, I would start a skeleton crew, and I may even, leave a lot of my best players at home here in Pittsburgh so they get a good night's sleep, have a kick around on Sunday morning, and then go fully rested and refreshed, by bus to Cincinnati. I don't think Bob will do that, but I think that the other danger, of course, is it's literally Las Vegas. They're literally going to Las Vegas. I mean, that
was my next question.
They're going to the most dangerous city in America for behaving well.
Right. It's Passover and Easter. Easter's the next day. Passover starts. It's like it's just, I can't imagine what that's like. In terms of Vegas will probably be kind of quiet that night. I mean, but then again, it's Vegas, so I should never say that.
Yeah, right. The Venn diagram of people who feel guilty and need to go to church and people who really like going to Vegas at Easter is completely two totally separate circles. Those are not the same people, dude. They didn't celebrate Lent and then get on a plane to Vegas. They didn't do that.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and I think, I don't know the hotel arrangements. I just, I'm sure it's going to be a very, very tight itinerary for Bob and his crew. You have to, right? I mean, but if you're in Vegas, you're tempted, right? There's that great temptation that you want.
Yeah, hopefully our guys only get tempted by. Hopefully our guys only get tempted by the buffet table. That would be okay by me, right? That's the least of the things that could get you off track in Vegas.
Well, I would imagine, I don't have intel, maybe you do, that there will be a few members of the Steel Army who will make the trip. I don't know, but I'm sure they will take care of the enjoying themselves a little bit before or after the game.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We shall find out. All right, Mark, we are really getting tight on time, but thanks for your time today and for your great coverage yesterday of the Tulsa Tussle, and we will be talking soon.
Peace out, guys.
All right.